Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Juliana Jimenez and Tatiana Ramos group. Welcome to the virtual tour of a rural school in Palenque. We invite you to immerse yourself in an educational experience that explores the bilingual needs of a community with a unique cultural and linguistic heritage. Throughout this tour, you'll visit key spaces within and outside the school, from the classroom to the community center, where you'll discover concrete strategies for building a truly inclusive and contextualized education. Each scene will allow you to reflect on the challenges of the current curriculum, discover culturally sustainable materials, and see how technology and teacher training can be allies in strengthening an education that values both Palenquero and Spanish and English. Get ready to rethink bilingualism from a critical intercultural perspective situated in the territory. Here we have our objectives. Recognize and integrate Palenquero as a legitimate and essential language of instruction, promote culturally sustaining pedagogy and decolonial education practices, support students' linguistic rights and cultural identity, equip educators with the necessary skills for intercultural and inclusive teaching. The current educational curriculum, as I mentioned, and disproportionately emphasizes the dominant global languages, namely English and Spanish, while systematically excluding Palenquero and indigenous Creole language of great cultural and historical value to the Palenquero community. This exclusion contributes to the erosion of linguistic identity and constitutes what Pedroso identified as a form of linguistic colonialism. To address this, a revised educational policy is needed, one that affirms multilingualism as a right and a resource and actively incorporates Palenquero alongside Spanish and English within the educational framework. Now, in this part, we find that strategy one, there is implementation of multilingual and culturally relevant materials. Try to adopt and produce reading materials such as books, texts, stories available in Palenquero, Spanish, and English that reflect the culture, history, and identity of the Palenquero community. In fact, according to Baal and Sebas, educational materials that reflect students' linguistic and cultural experiences improve engagement, self-esteem, and academic outcomes. Now, let's continue and let's see what else can we find here in Escuela Rural Palenque. What's happening with this interrogative mark? Well, let's check this. My goodness, here we find strategy 2. Development of a trilingual curriculum. Design and implement a trilingual curriculum that includes Palenquero, Spanish, and English as media and subjects of instruction. A trilingual approach ensures that students develop communication skills across languages while preserving and strengthening their cultural roots. Let's continue here in this hall and let's check what else can we find here. Well, here in this classroom you can see the community, the students, and the teacher. So in this part we have the implementation and oversight. Well, Here we find as responsible entities the regional offices of education, local schools boards, and departments of cultural affairs. Timeline phased implementation over a 3-year period. Here we have 2025 to 2028, monitoring and evaluation too, and annual review report, community consultations, and language impact assessment will be conducted to measure progress. Here we're talking about the students in order to measure students' progress. And well, if we click here, this part, we find that strategy three. Strategy number three. Teacher training, intercultural competence, and decolonial pedagogy. Here, as a strategy, we think that conduct mandatory training workshops for educators focused on intercultural communication and inclusive classroom strategies and the colonial pedagogical frameworks can work. In fact, Ball and Sebas emphasize that the success of intercultural education depends largely on teachers' awareness and sensitivity to cultural and linguistic diversity. Here, if we click on the door, on the door, not the window, because this is a window, here in this circle, let's check what we find here. Well, here we find strategy number four. But well, because first we need to click here, this star, when you find Escuela Rural de Palenque, we find also uh, the policy here, policy that represents a commitment to linguistic justice, cultural preservation, and educational equity by centering Palenquero within the school system alongside Spanish and English. We affirm that dignity, identify, and heritage of the Palenquero people in advance toward a truly inclusive model of bilingual education. But here we find strategy four, that is promoting authentic principles of education of bilingual education. It means that we need to incorporate into all educational initiatives the principle that true bilingual education values all languages and all voices. This guiding principle ensures that Palenquero is not treated as an add-on, but as an integral component of the community's identity and educational heritage. And well, what else do we find here? We start, we are now when where we started previously. So guys, basically this was all our journey. And well, here I already presented to you all the things we needed to take into account. Here we have again the classroom and all like the context and also the different strategies you need to take into account. I mean that different strategies what that we thought in order to implement in this um specific context, of course, but also taking into account the even and the issues that we were presenting to you. Thanks a lot for your attention. This is all for today and hope you have enjoyed a lot this 3D tour. Bye bye and hope to see you soon.